All right, y'all. Let me go ahead and get my order crow to go. Gary Russell Jr. goes down by majority decision versus Mark Magsayo. One of the judges had it 114-114, overruled by the other two, who had it 115-113 for Magsayo. Gary Russell Jr. pulled up lame on that shoulder, right shoulder, I think in the 5th round. Pretty much didn't throw a jab the rest of the fight. And in my opinion, did a good job. Did as good of a job as you can expect a guy to do with one hand. You know what I'm saying? With just being able to throw shots with one arm. And even with that being said, I don't feel like, I really don't feel like Magsayo did enough to win the fight, but I'm not upset with the decision. The fight was close enough to where if it went either way, you can't quite robbery. My only issue was that watching the fight and looking at Farhood's scorecard, it had the makings of a fight that Gary Russell Jr. was not going to win unless he just clearly dominated from, start to finish. I said going into this fight that I felt like Gary Russell Jr. was in a situation where he was a guy who kind of was running out of allies when it came to the politics of boxing. And the main ally that I felt like he needed and didn't have was the WBC. I just felt like the WBC didn't do him any favors. And I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying they didn't. And I think the main driver behind that is the fact that Gary Russell Jr. is so inactive. The WBC never gets to get sanctioning fees off Gary Russell Jr. So when Ray Vargas was supposed to be Gary's mandatory, that wasn't a favorable fight for Vargas because Vargas was coming off of a long layoff, which Gary was too. To me, that makes a good fight. And Vargas was coming off an injury. But they decided not to hold that fight, and then we end up with Magsayo. So I felt like it put Gary in a situation where he was up against it in this fight. But all in all, you got to give Magsayo his credit. He didn't let the moment get too big for him. He didn't let the magnitude of who Gary Russell is, what Gary Russell brings to the table, the notoriety, the fact that Gary Russell was the longest reigning champ. Magsayo went out there and did his thing. He never seemed to let frustration set in to the point that he just deviated completely away from the game plan, which is what I expected to see happen. I expected at some point in the fight, I expected Magsayo to get frustrated because Gary's such a smooth operator, a smooth technician in there, that at some point he would get so frustrated that, the fight would just get away from him. And Gary would start to pull away. Of course, that was not foreseeing Gary having such a severe injury to his right arm. But, with that being said, I think this is about as good a fight as you can get between two solid fighters, with one guy having a hurt shoulder or not throwing punches with one hand the whole, over half of the fight. I feel like it's about as good a fight as you can get. So as far as from a fan standpoint, I was pleased. I really have, no gripe, with the fight itself. I am one of those people who have that take it from the champion mindset when it comes to close fights. But like I said, there again, I'm not mad at the decision because the fight was just that close, and I'm sure when I go back and watch it, it'll probably be even closer, when I watch it again. So, I don't know, or maybe I'll watch it again and feel like, one guy actually did better work than I thought, and I may feel like they wanted to fight more clearly, but, or other guy wanted to fight more clearly. But I just, watching it live, I couldn't see what Farhood was seeing. But, that said, Farhood didn't make the decision. He didn't have any bearing on who actually won the fight. The most Farhood has bearing on is swaying the opinions of those watching the fight, who aren't really watching don't really know a whole lot about scoring a fight or isn't watching the fight with an objective mind. But, like I said, it was a good fight. Congratulations to Mark Magsayo, the new WBC Featherweight champion. Let's see what's next for these guys. You know, I'm sure rematches are going to be on the horizon right away. So let's see what happens next for Magsayo. See if Gary gets his surgery on his shoulder and comes back. And you know, see how he looks when he returns. If he stays at featherweight or if he finally moves on up to another division. But that's all I got on it. D-Lo 404 Boxing. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace.